Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Savvy Cast. This is Jamie, and I'm so grateful for all of you who are joining, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast. I am very excited to have a repeat guest who was actually on the podcast 5 years ago. So this is almost like a new podcast, but I have with me today Annie B. Jones. Annie Jones owns the Bookshelf. It's an independent bookstore in beautiful downtown Thomasville, Georgia, where she lives happily with her husband, Jordan, and has lived there for more than a decade. Annie hosts From the Front Porch, a weekly podcast about books, small business, and life in the South. Her work and podcast have been featured in national media, including Southern Living and Country Living magazines, and her first book, Ordinary Time Lessons Learned While Staying Put, releases this April. I'm delighted to have as my guest today, Annie Jones. Annie, thank you so much for joining me on the SavvyCast. I'm thrilled to have you here.
This is so special. Thank you, Jamie.
Well, Annie, I know that you remember being on the SavvyCast before, but I didn't realize it was 5 years ago.
Gosh, that was a long time ago now. A lot has happened.
But yeah, a lot has happened since then. So for my perhaps new viewers or listeners, I just want to give a little insight into how we know each other outside of this type of thing. But would you like to tell how we're related?
Yes, I would. So my husband, Jordan, is Zane and Jamie's nephew. And so can you believe in November, Jordan and I will have been married 17 years. And yeah, and I've been coming around since I was 18. So Jordan and I have known each other now over half of our lives, which is really sweet and special. So I feel like I've been around a while now.
You have. You're part of the family. Listen, you and I are both married into the family, so I think there's a special bond when you know that you were outside, now you're in, and
you married the only boy. I think that's key.
Oh, yes. Even though we're loved and adored, I think we always had just a mutual, hey, we're
in this.
Yeah. So, and Annie, I do want to just refresh from the last podcast. We did talk about the bookshelf. Today, I want to hone in on your new book, which I'm going to hold up for the podcast people. Ordinary Time Lessons Learned While Staying Put. This book is fabulous.
Have you read it? Did you?
Oh, yes. I've got a little bit more at the very. I've got probably 8 pages.
Okay.
Now, are you doing an Audible book?
Yes, I did the audiobook. I narrated it.
So that all comes out at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. What about Kindle?
Yes.
Okay.
Anywhere you can read it, you will be able to read it on April 22nd.
Okay. Now, did you do the Audible yourself?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to get the Audible. I am a big Audible person.
So is Jordan.
Yeah. This book is fantastic. You're such a good writer.
Thank you.
Annie, just for those who this may be their first time to hear of you, which is very rare. You're very well known. But give us just a little snippet. Who is Annie B. Jones today?
Yes. Okay, so I am the owner of the Bookshelf, which is an independent bookstore in beautiful downtown Thomasville, Georgia. I have owned and operated that store for 13 years this May. I am I am the host of From the Front Porch, which is our store's weekly podcast about books, small business, and life in the South. I've also been doing that for about 13 years. We were early podcast adopters, and so that show has recently celebrated 500 episodes, which is really exciting. And then I am most recently the author of Ordinary Time, Lessons Learned While Staying Put. Those are my professional. That's who Annie B. Jones, the professional, is. I'm also a person, a wife, a daughter, a friend, and a soon-to-be mom, which I cannot believe.
Yes, we're so excited about that in the family. Annie is pregnant alongside about the same months along as my twin daughters, and they're all very, very close. They're all close, but we don't live close. So we're going to have to do some things about that to have all the babies. You're having the boy.
I'm having the boy.
Yeah, and we're having the girls. Have you picked a name?
We have picked a name. Not everybody knows the name yet, so I am
Oh, okay.
secrecy until Jordan, I think, has told some of the family, which means it may trickle its way down. But anyway, we've kind of held that a little bit close, but I do love
Yes,
the name and I'm excited.
that's wonderful. Well, Annie, I do want to just move into the book, but I want to start with the bookshelf. The bookshelf is widely known, and it was featured in Southern Living, and it is quaint and beautiful. But how would you describe the bookshelf to those who maybe have never heard of it?
Mm. I hope that the bookshelf is a warm and inviting, independently owned small bookstore in rural South Georgia. A lot of people assume Thomasville is near Atlanta. We are nowhere close to Atlanta. We are South Georgia, actually quite close to Florida,
Right.
where Jordan works. And so we are a store that is deeply rooted in our community. So, because of the podcast, because of our vibrant Instagram presence, we do have a wide range of customers all over the country, which has really grown in the last 5 years, probably since the last time I was on the show. And I'm so grateful for those long distance customers and community. They really helped us during the pandemic.
Mm.
But I do always say that the bookshelf is a flesh and blood bookstore. We're very much rooted in Thomasville. We're very much a community store. We do story times, we host author events, workshops, Galentine's Day, pin to plate dinners. I remember when we were first taking over the store, we reached out to Zane to ask him, was this a good idea? Was this a good business decision? And
And Zane, but for those who may not know, that's my husband.
yes.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
he was so helpful. And one of the things he told us was, my advice would be to make sure the bookshelf is an experience. And I've never forgotten that. And I really hope and believe that the bookshelf is an experience. And so for local Thomasville customers, I hope it is their local community rooted independent bookstore. And then for our long distance customers, I hope we are a destination, a tourism destination where people can come and spend time with us, with our team, with the store. Warm, welcoming, inviting. Those are all the things I hope the bookshelf is.
Well, I would love to just briefly touch upon the ways that you reach out to your non-locals because
Mhm.
actually I have so many friends who are like subscribers to your monthly, I believe,
Yes.
book club. And
Yeah.
I just think you have made so many avenues for people to connect. So just touch upon those very quickly,
Yeah.
no matter where you live.
Yes, we knew Thomasville's a small town, and so we wanted to make sure we had options for long distance customers to be able to support us if they so chose. So we have a monthly book of the month club called our shelf subscription program. We have between 300 and 400 subscribers to that program, and we ship books all over the country. Our entire upstairs is devoted to shipping. We have 2 team members whose entire jobs it is to ship out books. So we have that shelf subscription program where it's like our staff favorite books of the month. I'll also say that that's a great gift because we do baby board books. So it's a great little baby shower gift. You can buy, a 6-month subscription. So your new little baby in your family gets a new baby book every month, which I think is really sweet. I gifted that to my own nephew and he really loved it.
Oh,
Um,
I'm going to
so
do that for the girls.
yes, it's so fun
Yeah.
because then you get mails every month, which is fine. Mail
Yeah.
that's not bills.
How
So
how does that go up in age? I mean, is that
yes.
something you can give grandchildren?
Totally. That's right. So it's board books, it's picture books, chapter books, and then middle grade novels. And then we of course have the adult offerings. So I think it's a great gift for grandparents, for aunts and uncles. Like I live far away from my nephew in Chattanooga, so it's a way where I get to mail him a little something. So our shelf subscription program is a great way to support the bookshelf long distance. We also do our podcast and through our podcast do a ton of online sales. So you can shop bookshelfthomasville.com and I always say if you don't have a local independent bookstore, we will happily be yours. So we will happily be your independent bookstore. And then if you listen to the podcast, we also have a Patreon. Most of our Patreon supporters, not all, but most of them are long distance customers. I'll do monthly porch visits where I do Q&As, Q&A Zoom sessions with our Patreon members, and we conquer a classic every year. Last year, we read Lonesome Dove all year long. This year, real leap of faith, we're reading Don Quixote all year long. It is not too late to join us. So that is also fun for long distance customers.
That is amazing. And for people who want to gift books during the holidays,
Yep.
how do you make that easy? Because I will say that's a task because you may not know the taste of the person that you're gifting, but some people just want to gift books because they're so meaningful.
Yes. So we do holiday and seasonal gift guides, like for every season, but especially, of course, for the holidays. Right now, as we talk, we're leading up to Easter, for example. And so we do surprise boxes for Easter where you pick the price point and we fill a box. And so we also do that at the holidays. We do stocking stuffer boxes. We do a countdown to Christmas bundle for kids. We do an Advent box where we do 24 little prizes that you can open all December long, which is a hit every year. So if you shop our website, our online sales manager Erin is phenomenal at making online shopping easy. We also try really hard to make sure that what comes to you in the mail is beautifully packaged. We want the online customer to have the same experience an in-store customer might. So we take presentation very seriously. Everything is wrapped beautifully. You get a handwritten note from one of our team members. So holiday shopping, I think, is pretty easy with the bookshelf.
Well, I'm going to throw in another idea for people who want to gift books. It was Ellie's wedding. I don't know if we did the same with Judd's, but we had the little the little flower girl and the ring bearer. Yes. Escaped my memory. And we thought, what is something that they won't just open and toss aside, but that will keep them busy because they have to sit through a lot.
Right.
And the bookshelf created the most precious boxes. And yes, they were beautifully wrapped. They came quickly and they were filled with so many different things to keep. I believe you had colored pencils and things they could draw.
Surprise balls. Yeah.
So many things that I never would have been able to put together. So that is a perfect gift for Grimm's little ring bears and flower girls.
Yes.
So, okay. Well, Annie, let's get to the book. What on earth in your busy, nonstop life inspired you to write a book?
Somebody asked me in the beginning of this process if this was just, kind of a natural thing to happen after owning a bookstore or while owning the bookstore or, hosting the podcast. And my answer to that is no. I mean, before I wanted to be a bookstore owner, before I really wanted to be anything, I wanted to be a writer. I was a journalism major in undergrad. Recently, while preparing our home for our new little one, Jordan and I have been married a long time, and so I've had to go through a lot of things to make room. And I mean, I have found, and I've said this on my own podcast, but I've gone through boxes and boxes of journals, short stories, poems, songs. I have been writing since I knew how to write. And so the bookshelf and From the Front Porch and the growth of the store certainly made this book possible, but the book and writing a book has always been percolating. And I just feel really lucky that a publisher was willing to kind of take a chance on somebody like me. And so I finally, in 2023, put together a book proposal. It was what I did for Lent that year. I took on kind of a daily writing practice. My creative coach had suggested, she was like, I think it's time for you to see if you can take these words that are spinning around up there and see if there's a theme to them, see if you can sketch out a proposal. And so that's what I did for Lent that year. And the result is ordinary time.
Okay, and I do have to ask you because your publisher's a mutual friend.
Yeah.
How was it to work with Jonathan Merritt? And what's the publishing company again? If I ever write a book, I'll probably see a pitch to them first.
Yes, he is wonderful. And listeners should know, and you keep reading the book because you're in the acknowledgments because you helped make this possible. We were at a family function together, and I had written this proposal. I had written it during Lent, and then I just kind of let it sit there. I didn't really fully know what to do with it. The next step in the process is to find an agent, and I found that extremely intimidating. And you and I were talking at the lake, and you said, "Oh, I've been in conversation with Jonathan Merritt," and my antenna went up. And I'm normally terrible at this, but you and I have known each other a long time. And I was like, "Well, actually, I've written a proposal." And you were so generous, and you immediately were like, "Oh my gosh, let me put you in touch. You're a great connector." And so you reached out to Jonathan, I think 2 days later. And God bless Jonathan for taking a chance on somebody he did not know. But he was wonderful. And he was actually, he took a look at the proposal, and he was able to see exactly the parts of the proposal that were most important, where I could really hone in my focus. And so he provided feedback, and he told me, if you are serious about this and you tweak this proposal, you make these changes, I'd be willing to work with you. And I didn't look at any other agents. I was like, okay, he's an Enneagram 3 like Jordan. And I was like, we'll get along, because I am not an Enneagram 3. I am not great at those aspects. He's extremely savvy. And so he was wonderful to work with. And a few months later, he had pitched the book to publishers, and it went through a bidding process. And our publisher is Harper One, which is part of HarperCollins. And so I'm so grateful to Jonathan for taking a chance on, somebody's niece, essentially.
Oh, listen, I love Jonathan. He was on my podcast, and I'm going to link to that podcast in the show notes, because there may be other budding writers out there, but his podcast was how to write a book, the different ways, the different methods. You can get a ghostwriter. I know you didn't do that, but I felt in my gut that y'all would get along. And look at this. Look at you.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. Well, Annie, tell us, where did you get the title, which I love, Ordinary Time?
Mhm.
Like, what, just because the title is a big deal. It
The title
requires
is
so much thought. Give us the meat of that.
Well, and the title, as I understand it, frequently changes from proposal to final product. And for me, it did not change. Ordinary Time was a title, and originally maybe the meat of the book was going to look a little different, but the title for me was always very clear. And I take the title from the liturgical calendar. And in the liturgical Christian calendar, we celebrate and honor Lent, for example, or Advent, or the Christmas season, or the Easter season, or Pentecost. But the biggest chunk of time on the liturgical calendar is called Ordinary Time. And I have always loved that, because I think most of our lives are ordinary. And as much as we love the Easter season and the celebration of it, or as much as we appreciate Lent and the time to reflect and maybe be a little quieter, most of our lives are spent in these ordinary seasons. And I wanted to write a book that honored the ordinary, and that talked about what happens if you don't live your big city dreams, what happens if you live 30 minutes away from your hometown, what happens if you plant your roots in a tiny town and you maybe don't fulfill these things you thought you would do. What happens if you settle? And I think most of us do that. I think most of us are just ordinary, and there should not be shame in that. Instead, I think there's something really lovely and special about a rooted, ordinary life.
I love that, Annie. And I believe it was Zane's mom, Mimi, who would be your grandmother-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah. She said, and this has never left my head, thank God, literally, thank you, Lord, for
Mhm.
an ordinary day, because an ordinary day is a good day.
Mhm.
Days with drama or excitement, they can be on two sides of the spectrum. So
right.
ordinary days are a gift, and I just love that title. Now,
Yeah.
the subtitle is, I love this too, because I don't know how to stay put. Le- I do not know how to stay put. Lessons learned while staying put.
Mhm.
Tell us about that, because
Mhm.
I love that.
So the lessons learned part really spun out. So Ordinary Time was always the title in my head. And I'm grateful the publisher agreed. The subtitle we kind of played around with, Jonathan and I in particular played around with it. This idea of lessons learned, I took from a practice I've been doing on Instagram for a long time where every month or every 2 months I'll post about the things I learned that month. And I love reflecting that way. And so I knew this collection of essays was going to be about staying. Again, not living your big city dreams. I always, I'm a kid, I'm a millennial, a child of the 90s. I thought I was going to go be a, journalist in New York City. And then I made decisions that were different from that. And I've wound up 30, 45 minutes outside of my hometown of Tallahassee. Jordan and I have been rooted in this Thomasville community for 12 years. And so I wanted to write what I've learned in choosing a life where we stay. And for me, that means, yes, literally staying in a small town or near my hometown. It also is a life where I've chosen to stay married to the same person I met when I was 18, staying true to myself. I write funny essays, staying true to the same haircut. I've literally had the same hair since I was 8 years old.
I have to. That's one the place that I've stayed put.
And so yeah, talking about your hair. And
Yeah.
so I've done silly things. I wrote some silly essays like that, but reflections on friendship. I'm still dear friends with the people I met 20, 30 years ago. And so I wanted to write those stories because, again, I think those are mostly the stories we're living, but people might think that's boring or it's not meaningful. And I do think it's meaningful. And so that is where this lessons learned while staying put came into play.
Okay, so staying put, the way that you're using it in the broader term, and I resonate with the same marriage, same friends. So it's not just not running errands around town and jumping around.
That's right. Having
It's
to have
a
your
deeper,
car.
yeah, it's a deeper meaning. So which I would expect much deeper from you than from my brain. But Annie, so you just in light of you thought this is where I'm going to go, what I'm going to be doing, New York, publishing, and then you met Jordan and then small town. When you realized this is what we as a couple have chosen, did you ever discuss, hey, we're going to do this for X number of years, then we're going to try this, or did you decide early on, we're going to stay put no matter what?
That's a good question. I think when we had conversations, particularly about moving to Thomasville and owning the bookstore, taking over the bookshelf had already existed. We took it over. The conversation I recall us having, and one I'm really grateful for, I think it was my aunt who had said, she said, just make a decision for a season. That takes some of the pressure off. I think when you go into a decision and you think this decision could be forever, it's a lot of pressure. And I liked the idea. My aunt told us to think seasonally. My dad had told me, when I was thinking about taking over the bookshelf, he had told me, you can't make a mistake. You're too young to make a mistake. And I appreciated that because I'm very serious. I take things very seriously. And it was so gratifying to have somebody in my life tell me, you'll be okay. Whether this shakes out or not, you'll be okay. And so with those two voices kind of in my head, I think Jordan and I said, let's try this. Let's try this. And then it quickly became apparent when we took over the store how important to Thomasville, which is a small town, how important rootedness was to them. And so I kind of quickly realized, oh, this might not be a fly by the seat of our pants seasonal decision. This might become more rooted than we think. And after 5 years, I earned the store through sweat equity for the first 5 years. And so in about 2018, we had to make a decision if we were going to finish the buying out of the store. And to me, that 5-year point is when we sat down and said, okay, how serious are we? Like, is this where we're going to plant some serious roots? Is this where we are potentially going to raise children? Is this a bigger decision than just, let's try this? I think at first it was let's try this and see what happens. And I think after 5 years, it became, okay, let's be really intentional about this. Let's be rooted here, for as long as God and life allow. Like, let's do this. And so, yeah, since about 2018, I think we knew we're going to be rooted here for a bit.
And isn't it, though, amazing at how, even though you are rooted in a very small town, you are all over the world. You are all over the world. I mean, Annie, if anyone is bibliophile the correct term for a book
Yeah.
lover? Okay, reader. I think probably anyone who's a serious bibliophile knows of the bookshelf. I mean, you have made such a name. So it's almost like such a beautiful thing that you're having or you're living the best of both worlds.
Mm.
Because
I hadn't thought about that until when I was writing the book and a friend of mine gently pushed back, not in an unkind way, but she gently was like, but you live bigger than you think you do. I think is kind of what she said. And I think that's a testament to, I mean, I'm a person of faith. I think that's a testament to how God works. I think
Mhm.
that's I think it's also a testament to sometimes our rootedness can play out in ways we can't imagine. And so I did not, when I took over the bookshelf, I did want the bookshelf to become regionally recognizable. I wrote that goal down. That was a
Mhm.
goal I had for the store. Because again, Thomasville was small, and so I wanted to make sure the bookshelf could grow or have the opportunity to grow. And so that was important to me for the store to become regionally recognizable. But other than that, I never could have imagined podcast listeners in England or, customers in Canada. Like I
Mhm.
never would have pictured that for myself. And I think it's a great lesson in, um, I wanted New York publishing, maybe get married a little later in life. I wanted those
Yeah.
things. And instead, I've been so delighted and surprised by choosing something different, and the gifts that have come from that.
Well, you certainly are married to the perfect person because Jordan can create adventure no matter where you are, create excitement. He is the epitome of a three,
Mhm.
and you're a five.
Yes.
And can you tell us, okay, as a five, how did that just naturally produce the reader and the writer that you are? Just give, for those who might not understand Enneagram, give us
Yeah.
a little snippet and how it just sort of ties together.
I think for me, how the Enneagram 5 presents itself in me is I was always a really introverted kid, very very much loved by my close-knit extended family. I had a close group of friends. I was never the kid who had like 20 friends. I had two or three close friends, some of whom I'm still friends with to this day, as I write
Mhm.
about in the book. So I think those things are all reflective of an Enneagram 5, but probably the word that I would use that best expresses my being an Enneagram 5 is curious. So I've always been
Mm.
curious. When I was little, my granddad told my mom, if she doesn't know how to do something, she'll figure it out.
I
And
love that.
so I do think that is kind of innate to an Enneagram 5. Really curious. I think for a lot of stereotypical Enneagram 5s that might look like science or math or like in a
Mhm.
laboratory somewhere, for me, that has meant a voracious reader. It has meant playing with words. I think I never can figure out which wing. I feel like Jordan says I have balanced wings. Um,
Oh, wow, that's rare.
yeah, but I
Mhm.
think curiosity is certainly a marker of the Enneagram 5, and curiosity is a big trait that I like to cultivate in myself.
Well, on your podcast and even on some of your Instagram posts, whether it's intentional or not, you inspire and incite a curiosity about certain books that personally I might never have considered, but just hearing the way you describe it or review it, is that a challenge to you to ignite curiosity and all of the people you encounter in books
Yeah.
in general?
I think, you know, I say all the time that I don't really have an entrepreneurial bone in my body. Like, I don't actually think I'm naturally entrepreneurial. I wasn't raised by entrepreneurs. I
Mhm.
didn't see examples of small business ownership in my upbringing. Um, but I love books. And so I don't think I could sell just anything. I think I'd be a
Yeah.
terrible saleswoman of almost anything. But a book I can sell because I genuinely love to read. I also do consider it a challenge when like I meet somebody and I want to figure out what book would they like. It's almost like being Nancy Drew or something and trying to figure out what makes somebody tick, what book off the shelves might they like. I do love that challenge. And part of the reason I love the podcast, I don't think I could just podcast about anything. Part of the reason I love the podcast is because I love reading a book and then telling somebody just enough about it to spark their own curiosity
Mm-hmm.
or to get them wondering if it's for them. And I feel like I'm a treasure hunter because there are so many books that come out every year. I mean, every week, new books are coming out. And it's kind of my responsibility to do the research that other people don't have time or energy or capacity for. And it's my job to whittle down and to find the right book for them.
Okay, I have to ask you, approximately, how many books do you read a week or day? Do you have a count? And how do you have time? Like, how do you have time, Annie? You're so busy.
So I read between 100 and probably 110 books a year. I average in a good month, like a month where my brain is not a million different directions, 2 books a month. I mean, 2 books a week. So 8 books a
Wow.
month. So 8 books a month feels to me like, oh, that's good. If I didn't have the bookshelf, I would read 4 books a month. I think that's my personal sweet spot. I would read about a book a week, but with the bookshelf, I sometimes do feel it's not pressure, but I do feel responsible for reading more because it's part of my job. So, how do I find time? Well, part of it is that's my job. Now, it's not, I don't sit at the bookshelf and read books. I think that's a common misconception.
Oh, no, you're not sitting. Trust me.
No,
Yeah.
not sitting reading books at the bookshelf. But it is part of my job, so I do have to be really intentional. I also became, during the pandemic, a lot more open to audiobooks. I was not a huge audiobook
Wondering.
listener. I'm not a big auditory learner. That's not typically how I best take in information. But during the pandemic, I figured out that I really can do certain books in audiobook format. So I think mixing up formats for me, I finally succumbed last year and got a Kindle so that I could read electronically some books that weren't out yet, because sometimes that's the best way to do that. So I mix up formats, and I have a book with me at all times. And in my best moments, I'm reaching for a book instead of my phone in my best moments.
Oh, that's good. You would all be better off if we did that. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I want to ask you, and I know it's hard to narrow down, and this doesn't mean that necessarily these are the top, but who are three of your favorite authors? And I would love to ask who are three that you know personally.
Okay. My favorite authors, and I don't know these personally,
Okay.
but these three are Marilyn Robinson. She wrote Gilead, which is one of my favorite books of all time.
Okay.
Marilyn Robinson, Elizabeth Strout, and Anne Patchett, particularly Anne Patchett's nonfiction. A lot of people love her fiction, and I do too, but it's her nonfiction that I love the most. Um, and I don't know those women personally. Now, Ann Patchett does own a bookstore. And so one of these days, she owns Parnassus in Nashville, Tennessee.
Mhm.
So she is beloved by indie bookstore owners all over the country.
Mhm.
And she's a prolific writer. So those are probably three of my favorite writers. I really love the poetry of Lindsay Rush. Again, I don't know her personally, but I follow her
Uh-huh.
on Instagram and I really love her poetry. I think women who are writing about well, actually, interestingly, women who are writing about characters who live quiet, ordinary lives. I mean, that's
Mm.
Elizabeth Strout's books are all about this town in Maine and all the characters that live there. And I think maybe that's why I'm drawn to her. And then Marilyn Robinson, to me, writes so beautifully about faith in a way that I don't think a ton of fiction writers do. And so, yeah, those are some of my favorites.
What is if you are you do you know what book has sold the most from the bookshelf? That like if you had to say this has been the hit,
Hmm
what would it
Um,
be?
right now, so this year it'll be, I do think, Ordinary Time,
Oh,
which
good.
is very
Yes.
fun.
Yeah.
But I think overall the answer is probably, if I had to guess, Where the Crawdads Sing, by Delia Owens.
Oh,
So Delia Owens actually is from Thomasville, and before that book became what it became, because it became a movie and New York Times bestseller multiple times over, she did her book launch with us, and Thomasville loves her, because
wow.
she's from here. She does not live here currently, but she is from here, and so that book continues to sell faithfully all the time. So I think overall, it's probably Where the Crawdads Sing.
That is amazing. What book would you recommend? Of course, your own. And I'm going to ask everyone watching or listening, please buy Annie's book because I can attest it's fabulous. What's one book you think everyone should read before they die, other than the Bible? I know that's a hard question.
Gosh, that is a hard question because everybody's so different and reading is so subjective.
Hmm.
Everybody's tastes are so different. I think years ago, I would have said, like 20 years ago, I probably would have said To Kill a Mockingbird. I think
Yeah.
I think now I'd say I would say Homegoing by Yad Jesse. She is a Black author she lived in Alabama, may still live there, but I think she grew up in Huntsville, if I recall. And
Hmm.
she's written, I love both of her books. I think as of this recording, she's got 2 books out. But Homegoing, I think, is really beautiful and powerful. And I remember my book club reading it, and it sparked some really fabulous conversation. And that's my favorite part about books. As introverted as I am,
Hmm.
and as much as I love reading, of course, as a solo, quiet activity, I also think there's nothing quite like a book that can bring out it's like a safe way to talk about hard, important topics. Like if we're
Hmm.
all reading together, we just can have the best conversations. I think some of the best conversations come from reading books in community with one another. So I think that's a tough question, but I think just if I have to answer off the top of my head, I do think Homegoing by Jesse
Hmm.
stands out. I mean, there are so many classics that could also fill that void. Weirdly, I mentioned Lonesome Dove earlier. That is now one of my favorite books of all time. And who knew, a Western. So I think there's all
Yeah.
kinds of books that
Yeah.
can surprise us with the things they have to teach us. But I think those, I don't know. I think Homegoing might be my answer.
Well, okay, I'm sure you already have a list curated, and I do want it because I want the subscriptions. 2 granddaughters this summer. First, children's books are so important. I was a voracious reader. I was the child who maxed out at the library. They said, that's
Yes.
it. And, would read under the covers at night. I mean, I loved books, Nancy Drew, all of those, Laura Ingalls Wilder. It
Yeah,
shapes who you are.
totally.
Do you have lists of all the different stages? I know you
Mm,
have gift guides, but lists
hmm.
of suggested books
Yeah.
for every stage of life for children.
So we might at the store have lists. Um, I think the closest thing we have is our subscriptions. I mean, I could name
Okay.
for you authors that like I think, and somebody's already gifted me one of these, and it's a hit in our house, and we don't even have a baby yet. But Sandra Boynton is like a go-to board book author.
Yes.
Giraffes Can't Dance is a super fun children's book. We've been
Mhm.
reading Paddington stories uh,
Mhm.
uh, in the evenings to the baby who's not here yet. But
That's
we know he can hear in there.
yes.
So anyway, so I don't think I have lists, but I definitely have in my mind go to authors. And I was like you, like I was a voracious reader as a kid. The library, reaching capacity of how many books you could take out. Yeah, I can't wait to introduce our little one to the worlds that I love so much. But I do think the bookshelf on our website, we have it divided by age. And so it's a
Mhm.
super easy way to browse if you
Mhm.
maybe aren't a voracious reader, but you're trying to raise readers.
Yeah.
It's a great way to browse our website is by looking at the age brackets.
Okay. Yes, that's. I bought a bookshelf yesterday at a discount store, and I'm just thinking, okay, I've got to start putting books and
Yes.
bunnies and all this. And
Yes.
I'm sure Pat the Bunny is still
Oh
a
yeah.
big seller. And guess
Big
how
hit.
much I love you. Good Night
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
I mean, those are must-haves in my
Those are
opinion.
classics.
Yeah.
Classics or each peach pear plum is still very popular, and that's been around forever.
Uh-huh.
Um, is it called? It looks like spilt milk or something. That's been around forever and is still a bestseller. Um, so all those classics, they're classics for a reason,
Yeah.
and they're still really popular for little ones today.
Yes. Annie, as we wind this up, can you throw out some information about your reader retreat? Are you still, because that is a hit, it fills up quickly. For those who might not know about it but might want to come, are you still going to do it? And give us some details.
Yeah, so we just hosted our spring retreat earlier in March. We do have plans to do an October retreat. So we're going to do a fall retreat in October. These are weekend long events devoted to um to reading, where we really wanted originally the idea came from this concept of what if we could host a summer camp, but like for introverts. And that's kind of where the idea came. And so we do a Friday night, all day Saturday, and then Sunday morning programming. So it's a weekend, hopefully accessible even for somebody who works. And it's designed really, like I said, we're trying to make the bookshelf a destination. So if you're a podcast listener, a long distance customer, reader retreats are a great way to get to come see the store. We do a happy hour on Friday night and then one of our pin to plate dinners where we clear out the middle of the bookshelf and throw a dinner. A local chef picks a cookbook and cooks from that cookbook. That is a magical night. It is so fun. So we do that on Friday night. Saturday, we do a book club conversation. I've assigned a book because, again, I think reading in community is so important. So we'll talk about a book together. Then they have a chance to explore Thomasville. We really want what's good for the bookshelf to be good for our community. And so providing lots of shopping and dining time for our retreaters. And then our staff comes and talks about our favorite upcoming titles, our favorite spring releases or fall releases or what have you. So it gives the retreaters a chance to get to know our staff and our team. We frequently will incorporate an author. So in the spring, our author was Jeff Zentner. He wrote Colton Gentry's Third Act, which is a fantastic kind of feel-good redemptive fiction story. He's also written a lot of young adult books. So he came from Nashville, and we're still working on author details for our October event. But anyway, he was there able to interact with retreaters. And then we do a private shopping hour and a live podcast recording, which is frequently a hit. I will co-host with the author and then with my friend Hunter, who is beloved on social media. He's a very avid reader. And so we'll do a live podcast together. And then Sunday morning, we provide breakfast. People get to shop quietly, and then we send people on their way. So it's a fun weekend. It's about 20 to 25 people, mostly women, though we've had the occasional man. And people come from all over. I mean, I think this last time we had 2 from California, a couple from New Jersey area, I want to say, New York. Certainly, of course, maybe Georgia or North Georgia, Texas, Colorado, Missouri. I mean, we have customers all over the country. And so one of my favorite things is to watch these 20 women. Some of them come, with their sisters or like a mother-daughter weekend. But by the end of the weekend, people have formed connections and they've formed friendships. And so I think it's really one of our favorite things we do. Oh my gosh, it's so much work. But whenever I ask the team, like, do you want to keep doing this? Because it is a lot of logistics, a lot of hard work, but the team loves it. I mean, it truly is so fun. And I don't know a ton of other indie bookstores doing things. Obviously, there are writing retreats, but this is a little different. And I'm proud of us for doing something a little different, a little outside the box.
Well, it is so successful. I'm blown away. So, but I do know it sells quickly. Like it
Yes.
sells out quickly. If someone wants to make sure they don't miss this next one or any, what is the best way to get that immediate? I know you have
Yeah.
Patreon and all that, but
Yes.
is it Instagram?
That's what I was going to say. Two main ways. You should be following the bookshelf on Instagram. That's
Okay.
at Bookshelf Tville. I'm sure you'll put it in the show
We'll
notes.
put it in the show notes. Yes.
Yep. So that is the number one way where we kind of announce. And then through the Bookshelf website, bookshelfthomasville.com, you can sign up for our newsletter. And that's the other best way to be the first to know.
Okay. And Annie, I want to end on this because I'm our whole family's going to see your tour, your stop in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us where you'll be traveling, or is it too many places to
Yes.
outline right here? And I can also, I'm going to put it in the show notes, but just
Okay.
hit some of the highlights.
Yeah, so I will be in Tallahassee, Florida. Well, I'll be in Thomasville on April 22nd. That event is sold out. But on April 24th, I will be in Tallahassee, Florida at Midtown Reader. On April 28th, I will be at Little Professor in Birmingham. On April 29th, I will be at Garden District Bookshop in New Orleans. And on May 5th, I will be in Greenville, South Carolina at M. Judson Books. And so all of that information is at anniebjoneswrites.com. We're also going to do a virtual event because we know so I didn't know I was going to be this pregnant when putting a book out into the
Those
world.
things can slip up on you.
Man, what a fun surprise. And
Yeah.
so those are the places I'm getting to go, but they're, relatively close by. They're within driving distance. We know that we have a lot of long distance customers, and I hope a lot of long distance readers. And so we are also doing a Zoom event on Thursday, May 8th. We are going to ticket that event, but I will be in conversation with my friend Hunter. And so people from anywhere can watch that virtual event if they so choose. And that information is also on my website.
That is wonderful. I will share all of this. Well, Annie, is there anything that you want to share before you go? I do want to say, I'm sure that at any event at Thomasville that Jordan and Sam Malone, your dog that I literally wish you would give to me.
He's pretty great.
Where did that adorable dog come from? So I'm sure they're always a part of
Yes.
anything that goes on.
They sure are. I think they were my first readers because I frequently read out loud while writing, and so Sam really has heard the whole book, which I'm very grateful for. Yeah, I can't wait for people to read this. I heard an author say, once a book is published, it stops being mine and it becomes yours. It becomes the reader's, and that can be a hard thing, like letting go and letting somebody else have these words now. But I hope the book finds the right people. That's always been my goal because that's my goal as a bookseller. I want the right book to find the right people. And so I hope Ordinary Time finds the right people.
Annie, thank you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you soon. And to everyone watching and listening, all of the information will be in the show notes. And until next time, you have a fabulous rest of your day. Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Savvy Cast. If you'll take the time to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, that would mean so much. As always, thank you for listening and have a blessed day.